In his newest book, Alzheimer's Prevention Program, he outlines the connection between lifestyle and susceptibility for Alzheimer's. He's an expert on Alzheimer's, memory training, aging, and brain fitness. He is the director of the UCLA Longevity Center. There is nothing small about him except his name. Dr. Gary Small is our guest today. Gary, let's talk.
Let's talk. I'm here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So, Gary, first of all, tell me, what is normal forgetfulness compared to abnormal forgetfulness? We all forget stuff.
Sure. And, normal is forgetting where you put your keys or where you put your glasses. Normal is, what's the name of that actor I saw in that movie last week? Abnormal is when you've got your keys and you can't quite figure out what to do with them. Abnormal would be where you're constantly repeating yourself over and over again. Abnormal is getting lost in a familiar surrounding. Those are extreme examples, but the reality is, for a doctor who takes care of older people, a doctor who sees people lose their memory, it's often a subtle distinction between normal and abnormal.
Okay, so what are some of the most common things that we forget that you see that would give you a hint that there's something going on that's not good?
Well, the most common things, actually, when I see the common things, I think that's probably okay because we're all experiencing them. 85% of older people complain they have trouble with names and faces. A lot of people do misplace common objects. Another very common phenomenon is what we call tip of the tongue. So you should know it, but it just doesn't roll off the tip of your tongue. And then the last one, let's see if I can remember it. Actually, it's what we often call prospective memory, or remembering to remember, the kind of thing where you're driving to work and you forgot your cell phone or you forgot something important. So these are the common things that happen to everybody. When I get more concerned about memory is when people tell me it's really interfering with their daily life, where they're not just joking about it, but others are commenting on it. If there's a sudden change. Usually these are gradually declining skills. But if something all of a sudden changes, that could be a medical condition, it could be a depression, it could be a small stroke, it could be something more serious.
Okay, so, and you have devised certain ways to help people remember things. For example, Look, Snap, Connect. Can you tell me about that and give us some examples of how you use it?
Look, Snap, Connect is shorthand for the 3 basic memory skills that we can use to remember almost anything. Look is a reminder to focus attention. The biggest reason we don't remember is we're simply not paying attention. We're distracted. Snap is a reminder to take a mental snapshot of what you want to recall later. Our brains are actually hardwired to remember visually. And finally, Connect is a way of linking up those mental snapshots so they have meaning. If something is meaningful, it will be memorable. So an example would be, let's take names and faces. Let's say I meet Mr. Bender. Well, I notice he has curly hair. So I might focus on his curly hair and I see him bend forward. It's as simple as that.
That's really fabulous. So we're going to get a little bit more scientific now. So what really happens in our brain? What are the changes in our brain as we age that can affect our memory? What's going on?
Well, boy, there's a whole lot going on in
the basic stuff.
Yeah, but like any organ
right.
in the body, the brain will age. It experiences wear and tear. And what we see when we do brain scans or if we do an autopsy of an aged brain, we see tiny little protein deposits. They're abnormal. They're called amyloid plaques and tau tangles. And it turns out they accumulate in areas of the brain that control memory, that control thinking, reasoning, the ability to read a map, almost any mental skill. And if you have a high enough concentration of those abnormal protein deposits, that actually defines Alzheimer's disease, a high collection of that. But we actually see those kinds of protein deposits collecting very gradually throughout life. Even in a younger brain, in people in their 40s or in their 50s, we can see them in lower concentrations. So they build up over a lifetime. And what we're trying to do in our research at UCLA is to find ways to slow down the buildup of those abnormalities.
And so the buildup causes the brain to stop working properly?
We don't know. I mean, it's always this argument or this challenge in science, what's the chicken and what's the egg? I mean, it could be those protein deposits. It could be other things. For example, there are long wires connecting the brain cells. And around those wires, there's an insulation called myelin. And it could be the destruction of the myelin, the insulation that causes the buildup of those plaques and tangles. Or it could be a problem with inflammation. You know, we know inflammation is actually a normal body process. If you sprain an ankle or you get an infection, there are little inflammatory cells that repair the dead tissue, that fight off the infection. As we age, we have too much inflammation, and those inflammatory cells actually attack normal cells. If you look inside an Alzheimer brain, you see evidence of inflammation. So it may be ways to cut back on some of that inflammation might be a brain protective strategy.
Okay. And so can we improve our memory at age 60?
Well, you can improve your memory at any age. And whether you're 20, 10, 60, or 90, there are simple techniques like Look, Snap, Connect that we found in our studies, and others have found this, that will improve your memory right away. And in fact, over time, you can have sustained benefits for many years.
And UCLA does some programs. I know the boot camp. Tell us a little bit about your programs.
Well,
that you offer.
I direct the UCLA Longevity Center, and
Right.
we have memory training classes here in Southern California at UCLA around town. We actually license them across the country. We're now in 70 sites in 17 states. Very popular programs. We have a brain boot camp, we have a memory fitness program, and each of these programs is tailored to different kinds of needs. Most of the programs are for what we call the worried well, people with very mild, normal memory complaints. But we also have a very new program, our fastest growing program we call Memory Care. And that's for people with mild Alzheimer's dementia and their caregivers. And together they come in and they go to groups, they learn Tai Chi, they learn memory techniques, and they also have support groups that helps them deal with the practical and the emotional challenges of dementia.
And that's offered at UCLA, or are those also offered
Well, the Memory
statewide?
Care, because it's so new, it's only at UCLA. But the other programs are offered around town and in many states throughout the U.S.
And can anyone attend? I mean, what are the criteria? Can you just sign up? Or?
Well, I think you want to call the center or look us up online. If you Google UCLA Longevity Center, you'll find us.
Okay.
And actually, Googling may be good for your brain. We did a study on that. We're easy to find, we're user-friendly, and we're there to help people.
So talk to me about the statement, every 7 seconds an American is diagnosed with Alzheimer's?
Well, actually, that's a little bit speeded up. I think it was every 70 seconds.
Oh, 70? Oh,
but,
well, that's
but when
better.
when this show reruns, that will be an accurate statement.
Okay.
Because at the rate we're going, the number of Alzheimer victims will triple by 2050. So that was a statistic from the Alzheimer's Association earlier this year, and it really speaks to how rapidly we're seeing the growth of this illness. And the single greatest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's disease is age. By age 65 or older, about 10% of the population is affected. By age 85 or older, it's almost 50%.
Wow, that's huge.
It's huge, and it's a tremendous financial burden. It's a tremendous emotional burden. A lot of people are afraid of it. They don't see the doctor when they should. But the earlier you get help, the sooner you can benefit. Many of our studies show that early recognition and treatment results in better outcomes.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about some of the books that you've written. The Longevity Bible. Tell me, what's the basis of that book?
The Longevity Bible is not just how to protect your brain health, but it's how to live longer and live better. I mean, most people want to live long, but not if they don't have their health. And so what that does is look at the latest science about living better longer and put that science into a context of giving people strategies, what they can do right now to live better and live longer. So it's about not just memory exercises or physical fitness, but it's about staying socially connected or having a positive outlook or what we can do about our environment to protect our bodies and our brains.
And that includes?
Well, avoiding toxins, for
Right.
example. I mean, a lot of people are concerned about toxins in the environment, in the water, maybe in their food. It can be as simple as feng shui. How do you arrange your home so it's more inviting and more peaceful? So there are subtle environmental effects and also some that are not so subtle.
Maybe making fun and being positive and,
Well,
smiling a lot and
humor is great.
Right.
I mean, humor is great medicine. Besides physical activity, it's probably the best medicine that we have. And so when we can laugh not at other people's expense, but maybe self-effacing humor is the safest kind of humor, it kind of puts all that stress into perspective. It's a wonderful way to live better and live longer.
And then what's the book, the naked lady stands on her head? Just tell me
Well,
a little bit.
I thought this was PG. Can we talk about that book?
Yeah, I think.
Well, that was actually the most fun book to write, and it was about my most unusual cases as a psychiatrist throughout my career. And so actually, when it came out in paperback, they changed the name to The Other Side of the Couch, because you're sort of a fly on the wall in the psychiatrist's office. You see how I think. You learn about these fascinating cases. It's like a series of 15 short stories, but it also follows the development of my career from a very kind of fumbling early resident trying to learn about psychiatry to someone with more experience.
Well, you've come a long way.
Oh, well, thank you. But you didn't know me back then.
No, well, I'm getting to know you better now. So, with 80 million baby boomers coming of age worldwide, meeting and living to the age of risk for dementia, the smartest way to take charge of your brain health is early detection and prevention. How can this help? Stay tuned to Let's Talk and find out.
It is estimated that over 5 million elderly Americans are abused each year. They could be your neighbor, your friend, or your relative. In most cases, the abuse is unreported. Every day, seniors become the victim of neglect, physical, emotional, and financial abuse. Help us stop the abuse by giving us a call. Help is free and you'll remain anonymous. Elder abuse is a crime. We're Adult Protective Services and we're here to help.
Our memory defines who we are. Without memory, we have no past. We can't plan for the future, and we have no context for appreciating the present. Improving our memory is the key for better brain health and quality of life. That's a direct quote from our guest today, Dr. Gary Small, author of Alzheimer's Prevention Program. Dr. Small, now tell me a little bit about that quote. What does that mean? And include, what does quality longevity mean?
So, we tend to think about memory as a brain function or mental function about the past, but it's really much more than that. It's about our past, present, and future, which really defines who we are. And when we start thinking about the future, we start thinking about longevity. How long are we going to live? And it's not just about how long we live, it's how well we live. And that's really what quality longevity is about. Most people want to live long, but they want to live well.
Absolutely. What's the point, right? If you're not having quality longevity. So with some of the recommendations in your book, you're creating the dynamic so that you have quality longevity by doing certain strategies. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some lifestyle strategies that can help you have quality longevity?
There's really 4 major areas: mental stimulation, physical exercise, nutrition, and stress management. And we can get into other things like social connectedness and being positive and so forth, but they all stem from those 4 major areas. So if we start with say, physical exercise, is probably the strongest scientific evidence that that's the key. I mean, if somebody said to me, well, doc, should I do a crossword puzzle or take a brisk walk around the track? I would say take a walk around the track. And don't do the puzzle at the same time because you might hit your head and bump into something. Mm-hmm. So physical exercise, it gets oxygen and nutrients throughout your body into your brain. It actually gives you a bigger brain, and a bigger brain is a better brain. Mental exercise is important as well, and the scientific evidence there is not quite as strong, but still it's pretty good that if you keep your brain cells active, if you challenge yourself, if you engage in lifelong learning, you're going to live better. You're going to really enjoy your life, and you're going to have better cognitive health. Nutrition is critically important. We've got an epidemic of overweight and obesity throughout the world, and that actually increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease. The kinds of fats you eat are important. We don't get enough omega-3 fats from fish and nuts and flaxseed. And we've got to have more fruits and vegetables in our diet and try to cut back on those refined sugars and processed foods. And finally, stress management. We can't get rid of all the stress in our lives, but we can manage it better because chronic stress actually shrinks your brain and it makes you forgetful.
And so what's an example of stress management? Laughing a lot would be.
Well, humor, of course, is very important. I mentioned social engagement.
Right.
Spending time with people helps you put life into perspective and actually reminds me of what I say is the triple threat to brain aging. Take a walk with a friend. You're going to get physical aerobic conditioning. You're going to talk about your day, which will actually exercise your brain cells, just having the conversation. And if you talk about things that are bothering you, it'll help you manage your stress.
So I want you to tell us a little bit about your co-author, Gigi.
Gigi is my best friend and my partner, and we've been married now 24 years. And we've been working together not 24 years, but a little less than that. And she came from a background in writing and actually from the movie business. She used to be an actress and then went on to write TV scripts and films. And we just kind of got started. I asked her to help me with a book proposal I was working on. And then when we turned it in, the editor said, well, who really wrote this? And that was the beginning. And it's really been a wonderful collaboration. She's gotten to be a better scientist. Occasionally she says, I've gotten to be a better writer. And what's great about it, it actually helps our quality longevity working together because it's something that keeps us young, keeps us creative, and keeps us engaged.
So one of the books that you wrote together, iBrain, and you referenced it earlier, The Brain on Google. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because so many people are into technology these days.
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, the iBrain was really about how technology affects our brains. I've been kind of a tech geek my whole life, and I've developed technologies to study the brain. But I was struck by how much all these new gadgets seem to be changing our lives. And so we decided to study that, and we looked at people searching online for the first time while we scanned their brains with a functional MRI scanner. And we compared those